Hello YouTube and welcome to the channel. Now then, today's video is part 2 of Project Bling. That's where we're pimping up MN Models D99S. In the first video, if you watched that, we put the 2-speed WPL 2-speed in the chassis, and we put all these trick bits and pieces on, like alloy shocks, axle tie rods, etc, etc. And hopefully in this video we're going to fit the electronics and refit the body. So the electronics we're going to be using are WPL's RES-V3 because they tie in nicely with the 2-speed. And to be honest, it's a pretty good system, and as I found out for myself, is more than sufficient for powering a crawler. So the first job we're going to have to do is remove the motor and solder the motor wires on. As ever, all the links to the products are in the description below. Feel free to click on them, and if you do, you'll be doing this channel a massive favour. Anyway, let's crack on. So that's the first bit done, soldering the motor wires onto the motor. While I was there, I've also soldered one of the little resistors that comes in the kit. It's good practice to do so because it cuts down on noise generated by the motor itself, and especially because we're using the RES-V3 system and there's a speaker involved. We need as much suppression of the noise from the motor as we possibly can. So it's good practice to stick one on. You get several in the kit anyway. And while we're there, as soon as the motor's out, I don't know if you can tell there, the little plastic cam that actuates the gear shift, I've ground a little flat on one side of the cam, and I found on the C34 that this actually helps with the gear shift, because normally it doesn't quite allow the rod or the shift shaft on the gearbox to extend fully, and so it tends not to change gears it should. So if we just grind a little bit off this cam lobe here, it allows that shaft to extend fully out. So next thing I think we're going to do is we're going to mock up the electronics off the truck and make sure the gear shift etc works before we put the motor back in the chassis. So that's everything connected up and everything appears to be working as it should. I've made a few minor adjustments to the gear shift on the 2-speed, but that's changing gear nicely now. It's worth spending a little bit of time just adjusting that cam to get it into the right place, because if you don't, once you put it in the frame you can't really touch it unless you keep taking it out. So that seems to be shifting okay. My speaker works, although I'm not going to turn it on at the moment because you won't be able to hear what I'm saying. And everything else, like I say, appears to be functioning as it should. We've got forward and backwards on the motor. We've got, although you can't see it, you might be able to there, steering's working on the truck. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put everything in the frame. Now it is worth mentioning that you do get a full wiring diagram on the RES-3 system, so it's well worth just familiarising yourself with the placement of all the plugs before you start plugging everything in, because you've only got to plug the battery the wrong way round, let's say, and you'll literally fry the board instantly. So you've got a full set of instructions, so there should be no excuses for getting it wrong. Now before we go any further, I just thought I'd make sure everything works in the chassis as it should. So I've bobbed the drive shafts back on the motor, connected everything back up again, and we're just going to quickly try it. I've also, although you probably can't tell, connected the servo links to the steering, and I've just very cheekily got a lighter and warmed up that linkage there just to bend it into a more favourable position. It's not the best looking thing in the world, but it does seem to work. But as you can see now, we have steering and backwards and forwards, and also we can change gear. That's high gear and that's low. So next step is finalising the positions of everything and start cutting the bodywork. So just to bring you up to speed on what I've done so far, I've just basically mapped out the final positions of the electronics. So the receiver and ESC etc is going to live up the front there. I've used a bit of double-sided carpet tape to stick it to the top of the servo cover. So if we go to the rear and that's where we're going to have the speaker. The speaker's going to live there. Same thing, there's a bit of double-sided carpet tape just to keep it stuck down, and these wires etc. are just going to run next to the motor, not too close though, up to the front. Now I've cut the battery tray in various places using the old soldering iron there. Cut the battery tray to, it's not the neatest job in the world, but you won't see half of it, and it is quite effective and quick. But I've cut the battery tray so that it clears all the wires for all the bits and pieces. So next job is to cut the underneath of the bodywork to clear the top of that motor, because we've lifted it up using the lift kit. I think we're going to have to cut the transmission tunnel out of the body. So I'll go ahead, do that, and get back to you. Well, that's the modifications to the body shell complete. As you can probably tell, I chopped the bottom of the transmission tunnel out to accept the new motor, and that allows it to sit flat on top of the chassis now. You can see where I've cut the battery tray out to accept all the wires and other bits and pieces. I've also, while I got the body shell off, I've just blobbed a bit of hot glue here and there just to secure the old lighting wires. I don't want to take them off just in case they ever want to return the shell to its standard trim. So it's basically done that just to keep them out of the way, really. Now I've also used the hot glue gun, if you see there, and just blobbed a bit here and there just to keep the wires nice and secure. So we're almost there. What I'll do, put the body on and see if everything fits, and we'll take a look at what we've done. So there we have our body mounted back on the chassis. It sits nice and level, which is fantastic. Hopefully it'll clear the gear change mechanism, but we'll find that out in a minute. Battery lives in its original position with the power supply just exiting at the back instead of the front this time. I'm thinking about leaving the bumper off because I think it just gives it a more of an aggressive look. Now the last thing to do before we actually try it is I've got some wheel weights here, so we'll bung those in, glue the tyres on, and then hopefully take it out for a run. Now we're going to be using WPL wheel weights. They will fit MN rims. They are a slightly tighter fit, and you have to apply a little bit more pressure to get these little clips in. There's one of them there, if you can see. These have to be pushed into the holes once the two halves of the wheel weight are sort of attached to either side of the rim. After we've done all four of those, I'm just going to put a few drops of super glue on the bead of the tyre, refit, and go from there. All four wheels are back on it, and the thing weighs an absolute ton now. I think one more job before we take it out for a little bit of a shakedown run. I'm going to just adjust some of these tie rods to get the axle alignment a little bit better, and I think we'll take it out for a run. All I need now is a break in the weather, as usual. Summer here in the UK. It will not stop raining, so as soon as it does, I'll take it out and see what it's like. back indoors now. What did we think about the modifications to our D99S? But before we start, I'm going to have to be honest with you guys. The original speaker, blew on the RES-V3 system within 2 minutes of using it. Luckily, I did have a spare brand new one. And I could only presume, because the one in my C34's lasted so long, I can only presume it must have been a defect from the factory. So I think I ended up with a bad one, but the speaker did pop within a very short period of time using it. Anyway, performance-wise, that bigger motor obviously gives us a bit more go. It does weigh a bit more, but it's more than offset by the bigger motor and the crawler gear, which is fantastic on the 2-speed. I was a little bit worried initially about the shock absorbers because they're very hard, but there is that much weight now in the truck that they do actually give a reasonable amount of travel. So it's probably a good job they're a little bit harder, because the truck does weigh a little bit more than the normal one. I think if you're using those shocks on the standard, I think they're probably a little bit on the hard side. Apart from the speaker, while we were out, nothing broke or fell off, which was fantastic. I didn't really give it too hard of a test, because A, it's just been built, and B, it doesn't actually belong to me, so I want to make sure that when the chap gets it back, it's all in one piece. I mean, the thing I liked most about all the modifications we've done, not only do they look quite trick, but they've also lowered the centre of gravity of the truck considerably. I mean, if you've got a standard MN, you'll know how top heavy they are, and how often, without wheel weights, they end up on this side. And to be honest, it didn't happen once with this, so that's got to be a plus point in anyone's book. So all in all, I think the modifications that we've performed on this truck have had a net benefit with regards to the performance and the usability off-road. So I think we're going to chalk that one down to a definite win. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video and you found it of some use and interest, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you're feeling that way inclined, hit the subscribe button for more similar future content. And if you want any of the products that I've used in this build, there will be a load of links in the description, so just click them and it should take you to the correct product. Cheers for watching, guys, and I'll catch you again soon. Thank you.